Bethany, will you look up the five yamas?
Yes, I will.
I was gonna make you recite them, but I thought don't need to throw you back under the bus right away.
I actually felt pretty okay. Um,
Yeah.
do you want me to just list it?
Yeah, say them and then in the if you can say the Sanskrit and then people like Sanskrit, I don't really care. And then in the translation.
Yeah. So ahimsa, nonviolence, satya, truthfulness, asteya, non-stealing, brahmacharya, moderation, and apagraha, non-attachment and non-possessiveness.
Say those again in English.
Nonviolence, truthfulness, non-stealing, moderation, and non-attachment.
I always heard a translation, one of them was continence.
Well, celibacy, brahmacharya, yeah, they
Yeah.
that is another
Or
translation.
just being more evil or contentedness or whatever.
Mm-mm.
Anyway, for sure. So I also like to think about it instead of our understanding. I sometimes like to think about so of course I like to say riddles in the beginning because I like to learn from riddles, right? They're not exactly riddles, but they're lines that they're paradoxical lines that you have to sit there and ruminate on. So there's a line I've mentioned to you many times about that I heard Gita Iyengar say, the daughter of Bhikkhus Iyengar say, a conflicted mind is knowable, a calm mind is unknowable. So if you think about that, that's one of those lines, believe me, I've been thinking about that for a lot and long time. A lot of different ways, same way over and over again. A conflicted mind is knowable, a calm mind is unknowable. The next line I usually say when I'm trying to peel open that line, um, I say, we all know the people that create drama in their life. One reason why you might create drama in your life is so you can know yourself. Because if a lot of people, unless there's like a spark or an action or a conflict, they don't know where they are in space. So a conflicted mind, if you're constantly going from one context to another where there's a little bit of conflict, you kind of know where you are in space. So a conflicted mind is knowable. A calm mind is unknowable. So when you're really quiet, when to now switch whole different paradigms, when you're in the default mode network where you're just being quiet, all right, which even Western psychology will be saying that may be the mohawk of the self is right down the midline, which I think is interesting for yoga poses, but that's a whole other story. But when you're the most quiet, maybe that's the most connected to self instead of self-knowledge, right? So if a calm mind's unknowable and simultaneously, perhaps yoga is about self-realization, and Patanjali is saying, hey, slow down the oscillations of your mind, you know, do, and then whatever's there, when we center before every class, and I always tell you, you're opening a door to energy, right? Maybe the ground of self is in the actual real quiet part, right? That's not where self-knowledge is. But there's a zone of consciousness that they're trying to say is where maybe the ground of the self is from an Eastern perspective rather than self-knowledge, rather than knowing your own wants and desires, right? So when you're like centering and feeling what it is today in your body and what is underneath what you feel today in your body, right? So remember, I started today with what the yamas are, and then asked the question, how come it's translated in terms of non this, non that, non ego, non self? And then when we're about to center, we go, wait, when I ask you to do things with proprioception, right? Open to the space behind you. Or in the middle of a pose, I might say, feel the space between your ears and your shoulders. Or what's your sensation in the whole room? Right? How are you merged with the whole room? And can you be that and have your feet on the floor and feel your sitting bones? Non. It's from that lens over time, like for the rest of your life. At least that's what the journey I'm on. I like consider things like what would non-stealing be? Because when I would train healthcare professionals trying to get them to not sacrifice at work, although they have to be full of sacrifice because they're giving, I would try to get them. And if you use the language to a caregiver that now catches on a little bit better, you tell them, you got to take care of yourself, self-care. But wouldn't that be just like us to make it moral? Then it's another thing you're not doing, right? What if the ground of that, it's not like self-care. It's like not taking from yourself. Sit up straight and tall. A lot of mothers on the call know that they give so much to their kids and to making their families work. You forget that, oh no, I need to take up space too. Selfless person, unfortunately, stealing from themselves too. It's not morally wrong. It's just kind of a bummer. So when you soften the inside of your mouth, let go of the skin on your face, relax your jaw, you feel that kind of dropping. So I'm constantly trying to put forward the idea that that energy is with you all the time. Your mind chooses not to pay attention to it, even though those impulses and the presence of that layer is here all the time. So Shavasana just isn't relaxation. It's just not defined in terms of non-activity. It's actually a place from which we encounter more of the universe, right? That should be folded into activity. To get back to Peter's point, it's like talking about it, Shavasana in terms of relaxation defines it in terms of the action of overaction, right? Instead of a whole thing in itself. So when I balance a little bit, as long as the balance not strain, if I can balance or get closer to a sensation of balance, perhaps I'm not stealing. Perhaps I'm not taking from certain muscles and making other muscles overwork. Feet on the floor, sitting bones. Find your midline, however you're going to do that today. Don't just do it with your frontal cortex. Let your midline's presence descend, permeate your mind. Don't look for it. So when I feel these sitting bones, I'm not trying to find like I'm furrowing my brow. I'm trying to allow the space so I can start to hear, or whatever, the space between. As I lift my chest, lift under the collarbones and broaden behind the shoulder blades, between the shoulder blades, I'm spreading the space at the base of my spine. As I do that, I can gently extend from the inner groin to the inner knee onto the inner heel. Now I'm going to go back to feeling my skin so I can feel the whole room. And suddenly I'm slightly more part of what's happening. And I get to start to notice things like the breath into each nostril, how it fills each lung, what actually happens on exhalation. All these things that were already happening. If you want to, bring your hands into prayer. It's a way to find your midline. But then engage your hands so you highlight your spine. Good. And then release. And then, so you can feel the contrast after the release, after you let your chest drop a little bit, start to lift your sternum again and watch the activation. Lift your sternum. Feel your spine go down through your sitting bones, find your feet, and then drop your chin. A whole bunch of yogis are telling you that's the same action if you're following something that's happening. This is a natural way that more of your energetic frequencies line up. That's why it's called the Bandha. Raise your head up with closed eyes. Open your eyes. So again, interesting. It's kind of hard to avoid the feeling of shame because it's like non-stealing, right? Like you're stealing, and we all think that stealing's kind of a bad thing. But I would suggest that perhaps that has more to do with how we what we hear. Like we need to hear it in terms of stealing and then non-stealing, right? So the fact that all the things that I'm aware of in what's happening in my body, um, and in my presence, when I center, the fact that when I go through my day, when I start writing my book again today, finishing my book, by the way, I think I finished it, and now I'm just cleaning it up. Um, that am I stealing? Is my mind stealing from my being when I'm not paying attention to all of it? No, that's why it's not stealing. Non-stealing, I think, is wrongly thought to be a moral issue. It's like, for good reason, our minds have developed not to pay attention to everything. Take your legs wide. You can move around for a little bit first, get your spine light, right? Right. But it's like, no, the fact is the truth is that there's a whole bunch of things going on in my body and in my world, in my life, right? And because I don't pay attention to all of it, it doesn't mean I'm stealing. It doesn't mean I want to be aware of everything all the time, right? It just means that in order for my mind to function, I have to steal from my own experience. I have to like pay attention to certain things more than other things, right? I'm telling you, I want the yamas to be interpreted more energetically than as moral things. I think moral things is the way we translate it quickly, kind of like Peter was saying in the beginning, like it's kind of a way for us to understand how we get consumed with the things like violence, and then violence begets violence begets violence. Isn't that the truth? We're in the middle of watching a whole bunch of that, at least in the United States, right? All over the place. It starts just building on itself, right? Oh, I read a really deflating headline that the Nationalist Party in Japan, in reaction to what's happening, made a whole bunch of gains. Their Japan First platform made a whole bunch of gains. All right, so spread your legs. All right. So we do know that those tends to get away with us, but the point is that when that starts to happen, you're forgetting, or you're actually stealing from what's possible, right? So I'm moving back and forth, and I'm getting the base of my spine open. And especially for me, because my groins have been being tight, like I need to get there being movement there. So I'm gonna add rhythm there too. I'm gonna go like, wait, I've been living in a smaller universe. Any of you know me from earlier iterations, I used to quote The Matrix, the movie, all the time, right? You've been living in a dream world, Neo, right? I've been living in a world where I keep letting my groins get really tight, right? My life force, I squash it down, right? And it's like, wait, that's got life in there. So I'm kind of opening it up physically, changing gravity, right? So my spine, not just up here when I move my arms, when I get frustrated with adaptive yoga often is that there's a lot of just arm teaching because it's easier, right? But in fact, you got to get all of your spine moving and stuff, right? So we're kind of like opening the window here by moving around. We're not really doing yoga all the way. We're kind of like letting fresh air into more parts of our spine because we've been, so I don't like the word, we've been stealing. We've been making our own air dank. And it doesn't mean you want the window open all the time, for God's sakes. It means you want to let the fresh air in and some of the dank air out. And then you have to deal with the fact that your mind needs some dank air in order to function. Ouch. What the hell, Chuck? Right? So now, because my mind only really learns by contrast, right? Because remember, I say that's the bummer, right? The mind learns best when it loses something, right? Damn it. How much is human being going to have to learn? How much of our humanity are we going to have to lose in order to learn something? I'm not sure. So now I'm going to sit back where I started in the beginning of class. And I'm going to like feel the openness I just felt for moving around. And I'm going to notice that I'm not sitting in the same river right now. Are you? It's not the same river I was sitting in before I moved. I think it's Heraclitus. I can't remember who said, the pre-Socratic, that said you never step in the same river twice. Huh. I like shit like that. Right? One of the things that I noticed when I started mind bodysuits, and I'm just like going off the metaphor so far in the class, this isn't what I really think, is I realized that when I started doing yoga, is when I realized that I was living with my body and with disability, and I was trying to overcome my paraplegia. I was actually living in a dank room trying to make it have meaning, right? I had been convinced to to not live in all of my body. One of my favorite early lines of mind body solutions Because living in your whole body is your birthright, right? It's your birthright. And just because I can't move like everyone else doesn't mean I don't have the same birthright as anyone else. All right. So now I'm going to take this open space and I'm going to notice without trying to change it yet, because we're about to add structure. I'm going to notice how my breath is different. Let's try to do that in your own case. Now we're going to add structure. What I see often when someone is an asana practitioner and is stealing from their own practice, from their own consciousness, is they inflict the discipline of the asana and they steal from shavasana, right? Steal, I put in air quotes. So I'm going to start putting my hands onto the table or onto my thighs or onto my knees, right? And I'm going to start adding the structure. Kind of cold. Adding the structure. It's pouring rain. It's very dark here. Today, this morning. It's part of why I wore a bright tie-dye shirt. Even though I'm wearing dark on the outside, I'm bright underneath. Damn it. Don't forget it. Right. All right. So then I start adding structure. But as I come into the pose, this is why it's like I hate the word mindfulness here because I know mindfulness is the great shrinker. The mind shrinks experience. I want to have the structure happen and I don't want to steal from the lightness we got from moving around a little bit. So I'm getting my arms, getting reference, trying to figure out how to draw energy out of the table, which is connected to the earth. I want to bring it into my spine. So if your hands are on the table, or even if they're on your thighs like this, roll your shoulders up towards your ears a little bit. Steal from your own pose, right? That's you stealing from your spine. It's getting lost in your joints, in your shoulder joint. But now open it, right? Open across your collarbones, right? Broaden this way and drop the shoulder blades down to open this up, right? So as you do that, you feel your sternum lift, right? Can you feel that, right? Thumbs up. We're with me here, right? Now take that lift and go down through your sitting bones, right? Now, if you want to make it more like dog pose rather than upward facing dog, I'm going to take my head, my neck more in line with my spine, but I don't want to lose my spinal energy in the hollows of my joints. So I'm rolling down, my shoulders down, engaging my latissimus dorsi, my muscles on my side, underneath my armpit. I'm lifting under my collarbones. I'm extending down through my feet, but I'm putting major emphasis on my sitting bones, down through my chair seat, down at a diagonal, down into the floor, right? As my neck lengthens. Breathe. Good. And then release. So, with all those instructions, didn't you kind of steal from the calming light energy? Your mind was trying to do it, and you're trying to. Okay, so on this next one, try not to steal. So, I'm not going to say as much. I'm going to have you do. I'm not going to give your mind so many things to do. But no, all those instructions are the yogis trying to lay down cookie crumbs, breadcrumbs, for you to see a pathway into getting more prana to run through your body, which is your birthright. Okay? Try it again. structure of asana without stealing the lightness. When I do it that way, damn, my breath gets way more full. I can get it way through more of my body. And then when I do it that way, when I exhale, I can feel my muscles more gracefully going towards my bones. Holy cow. Wonders will never cease. Good, and then release. Is this working for people? Shit. Shit. See, Angelique, I think she's on the call now. She got lucky because I was going to throw her under the bus with the yamas, right? I threatened Amanda. I could be coming for any one of you on this call. Hands together. So I got a nice little triangle. So the yogis start using shapes to try to get some structure so they don't steal. I could just put my hands together and have myself heavy on my elbows, and that would be fine. Except what if I tried to do some weird stuff? Like, first of all, I'm going to just do it like while really stealing. I'm going to just push my elbows into the table or into your thighs or whatever it is. Just push down hard. Like that'd be your will going. That'd be making the universe kind of small, right? So now I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to both lean on the table and lift away from the table at my elbows. What? Just fucking do it, right? Just do it. Push into the table and lift away from the table. Does that change anyone's chest? Does mine. What the hell? How could that happen? And it changes the bottom edge of my shoulder blades? What? And all of a sudden I can hit down through my sitting bones differently? What? And all of a sudden my legs engage differently? What? From one instruction? Yeah. Now if I broaden my palms without my mind trying to do it, if I do it as a sensation of freedom, what? It makes my inhalation and my diaphragm go better when I spread my palms. And then combine my skin on my palms with my diaphragm on my back, middle back. And then on exhalation, my fingers lengthen, the skin of my fingers lengthen. Good gravy. Good. And then release. Now let's go back to a stealing pose. Let's go back to the first one. Doi to doi doi. And by the way, sometimes I need the doi to doi doi, where I'm actually just not in my body. I'm just leaning on the table. And sometimes you're fatigued enough where you just go, oh, for F's sake, I gotta just freaking take advantage of my bones, hollow my joints. Now, from this pose, I'm going to transform, actually activate more of my being. And when I do more of me here, do you feel more or less connected to the whole room? Hmm. And if I add my breath, suddenly I feel a hum and buzzing in my entire body. Good. And then release. Now I'm going to go back and so when I start to realize stuff like this, I become acutely aware when I sit back in my chair how much my spine compression is actually stealing potential sensation from my whole body. But it's not really morally stealing because I can't not compress my spine, right? Because I'm paralyzed and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. It's not my fault. So now I'm going to bring some alertness back through my spine. I'm going to lift my chest. I'm going to broaden across my collarbones. Broaden the space between my shoulder blades. I'm going to let there be an ocean of depth at the groin and turn it slightly in and down. I'm going to broaden across my sacrum. And I'm going to breathe. I'm going to feel my feet. And I'm moving my head right now because I realize I've been like stealing from my neck. I haven't been moving my neck enough. So I moved a little bit and I'm going to come back to center. And I'm just going to be grateful about the fullness of experience that was accessible to me the whole time. I'm not a bad person for not having the whole thing accessible. You realizing the whole thing. I just haven't been doing it. I've been stealing from myself. I just need to know it's here and then release. I couldn't believe when I discovered, take your legs away. I couldn't believe when I discovered that it's not just that I couldn't do as much with my body before I came to yoga. My disability had changed that. That the real breakthrough for me was I was stealing from my body because my mind got fixated on how much I had lost. And by the way, when I got fixated on trying to my mind recover what I had lost, I broke my femur bone. I violated nonviolence because my mind tried to make something happen. So I'm going to lean over again, kind of like we always do. I'm going to press down, forearm into my thigh over here, hand back into this one. I'm going to realize that I'm going to do it a couple times, undulate a little bit so that my lower abdomen lengthens away from my sitting bones that are descending because there's space I tend to forget about. My mind doesn't allow this space. Neither does gravity when I have to sit, right? I'm gonna go the other way. I don't blame my life for having this space get dull, but I can open it up sometimes, which is what I'm doing right now. And breathing, right? Then, of course, there's the thing that everyone kind of wants to do, just get bigger in space, right? All right. Get bigger in space. When I just do it fast, I kind of steal from stuff. That's okay. It's kind of fun, right? But now I'm gonna like do it with all the grounding, gonna press down and open up and engage my spine. So I'm not, stealing's kind of a hard word, but I actually could have done it better, right? So I'm going back and forth and go back and forth and start increasing your pace and try to figure out where that place is where the amount you're stealing outweighs what you're gaining, right? Right. So you got to figure out, and this point will change depending on the day. So you start increasing your speed, but don't forget to hit down through your sitting bones and push off from the earth and keep going, right? And decide where you're losing value. It's not because you suck. It's because there's a place at which you can't pay attention to everything and do what you need to do. Good. And then release. Come back into center, legs back. So because I can't control my legs directly, when I sit normally in my chair, right, my legs kind of naturally roll out a little bit. And actually, I'm missing an opportunity when that happens. So when I bring my knees a little more in line with my hips, voila, there's an energy burst. Just going to recognize that with my breath. This is why one of the many reasons why Tadasana is in every pose, because there's an energy here that you're supposed to be tapping. Can you have this energy that comes from lining up your femur bone better with your hip socket? Can you make sure it helps you lengthen your neck? What would that look like? Right. So what is your mind gain? So I've been in, again, a lot of pain, and I've been scrunching my shoulders a lot. Everyone scrunch your shoulders a little bit, right? So it's not just that your mind's being stupid by scrunching your shoulders. It's actually gaining something. So scrunch your shoulders and wonder why this is like a uniform pain response, a universal pain response for a lot of people, right? They do this. And when I'm in a lot of pain, I tend not to do this, drop my shoulders and lift my sternum. But I know that dropping my shoulders and lifting my sternum makes me feel more full in my body. This steals and it's functional. It's not a moral mistake. All right. So then so go back to Tadasana, pardon me. Right. I have a hard time when I'm in a lot of pain. Let's say I have a fever and I have all that systemic pain. I have a hard time doing yoga because it just can't even get there. Right. But that's not today. Right. So again, I'm knowing that this is the state. This is part of why my spine is more compressed because my legs fell out and I can't do anything about it. I'm paralyzed. Right. But I can catch this energy once in a while, bringing my knees together. I can catch it up through my chest. And then I can figure out how to lengthen my neck, right? For me to lengthen my neck, I have to feel the bottom edge of my shoulder blades. I have to keep the bottom edge of my shoulder blades, not just lifting my chest. I have to keep them going down, this going up, then lengthening the front and back of my neck, broadening across my collarbones. Now I'm going to push down through my sitting bones, down through my feet. Good, and then release. That was a version of headstand. Shh. Shh. You can take your arms over your head, do. Right? You know what's a really bad headstand? When you see a student not have a closed triangle, and they're up like this. So let's just do that. It's like just be kind of not lazy, but when I'm all like this, my spine isn't as active. When I bring my elbows in and I lengthen from here to here, wait, what? And I go down through my catch it with my shoulder blades. Instead of being everyone scrunch your shoulder blades up. That
Did he freeze for everybody? All right, let's give it just a second. I'm gonna text him quick.
that actually throws your elbows out a little bit, right? When you actually go in and drop your shoulder. Did I freeze?
You did. You're
What
back.
the heck? Those are the best instructions of the whole class. All right, so did you hear when I said we're doing headstand? That we're doing a secret headstand, right? All right, so which is the inversion of Tadasana, right? So there's a reason I've been doing all this stuff, right? So, and I was just having to hang out up here, and then notice what happens when the elbows come in, right? If I go out here and just hang here, can you feel how your spine is more compressed? Bring it in. Now activate from the armpit up to the elbow. If you, right? And then, oh shit. Okay, I gotta teach you one more thing. Okay, take your arm down. Okay, so take one arm up. Now, if I extend from the armpit up to the elbow, gotta remember, if we were upside down, this would actually be on the earth, right? Or on the ground, right? So if I extend from the armpit up the elbow and I don't do it with discipline, if I just extend and I don't keep the bottom edge of my shoulder blade engaged, I've wasted some prana, right? So you extend from the armpit up the elbow, but you take your shoulder blade down. So one of the ways to help you do that is press on your own forearm. Press in, drop your shoulder blade. Press up into your fingers, drop your shoulder blade. Good, and then release. Does anyone, when they do that, do you feel more of your legs and more of your lower body? Can you tell what I just said? Yes, no, or is that too much? You got what I'm talking about? Do it on the other side. So if I'm out here, you can see how I'm losing energy from my shoulder joint, right? I'm just leaking and my spine's more compressed. If I come in and I drop my shoulder blade and I lengthen from my armpit to my elbow, that's not the whole picture. If I put reference here, press up my forearm, that'd be into the earth if I was upside down, press up into my forearm, drop my shoulder blade, and still lengthen from my armpit to my elbow, I can feel my legs more. Maybe you can too. Good, and then release. Kind of with me, some of you? Okay, doing headstand. Surprisingly, out of a class about non-stealing, don't forget where we've been, right? We can do both. My problem when I do both, I go off balance and I compress more in my spine. So I know this will be stealing a little bit. That's all right. Stealing's not a bad moral thing when it comes to yoga poses. So I'm gonna like extend. I'm gonna feel the pressure on my forearm. I'm gonna like push up, lengthen from the armpit there, up into that while dropping my shoulder blades. If anyone can tell, that would make you feel that if you were upside down right now and you did these actions, you'd feel more connected of your forearm bone to the ground. Hit down through your sitting bones, down through your feet. Breathe, and then release. I don't know about you, but I just got super hot. Oh my goodness. A whole bunch of things just happened, right? So what I didn't realize, this is why I don't think non-stealing should be thought about morally at all, right? Is that, so now when I sit in Tadasana, what I thought was Tadasana, right? And I bring my legs together and I do all the thing. Remember all this stuff about lengthening your neck and all this stuff what we're doing, right? Didn't realize I was also stealing from headstand when I'm doing Tadasana. Breathe. Can you try to, like, in your chronic mind, do both Tadasana and headstand? What? So, and then release. Did you notice I said in your pranic mind? That's a word I also not really like, never used before. In your pranic mind. So that's not your imagination, right? If anyone thought that was your imagination, I'm coming over. We're gonna have a stern chat. When I say pranic mind, I mean feel the prana, don't imagine it, right? Don't think your mind is engaged at that level. Your nervous system is, your consciousness is, right? One of the not yamas, but one of the limbs of yoga is focus, concentration. But I think they mean pranic, not mental, right? So if I can feel both, I'm gonna go back up again, I'm gonna come in again. I'm gonna try to do Tadasana and Shirsasana. What? But what does doing even mean in that? I don't even know. Good. And then release. I can tell you what I experienced is that when I quote did or tried to do both, I felt my rib cage get squeezed a little bit. So I'm gonna take a couple breaths to go, wait, I want my rib cage to stay pliable, flexible. Now I'm gonna do it again, right? Try it again. Good. And then release. So I can tell you, when I felt that constriction on my rib cage, you know what I know that was? That was my mind trying to do it too much, squeezing on the connection to the subtle body. And so I was over willing, even though I was telling you not to do it with your mind, I totally did it with my mind too much. Right. So then I realized what I was doing and went, oh, wait, I'm going to come back at it, try to keep the space. And I'm going to do the instructions again. I'm not going to have the discipline of the pose steal from the space in my body. Space in your body, not just your control, is supposed to do asana. You're not supposed to constrict it, even when you're flexing muscle. Go back to dog pose. When you start doing the instructions and adding the structure, you're trying not to squeeze the space. You're trying to include the space into the structure. Good. And then come on back to center. Um, I think you're going to find, so like, for example, two things. I think you're going to find that often, I know there's some of you been in some conversation with her trying to figure out how much you're being told and controlled a little bit by the social structures around you, right? Um, that we often sacrifice our space to do what we think is fitting in, but you don't have to. You can still fit in when you have to and not have it impinge on your space, right? One other thing is that when I'm doing Tadasana and I'm not feeling Shirsasana, am I stealing? No, right? Am I missing part of what's possible? Yeah. When I am sitting like this and this energy is still happening, take your arm wide, right? That when I'm sitting like this, that energy is still happening. When I sit like this, am I stealing from the energy that's not taking my arms wide? No, because prana is going in every direction at once. So why Shirsasana can feel like Tadasana is because it's all happening in every direction, including forward and backward in time. So I'm saying some weird stuff now, and I understand that. So I'm going to sit here in Tadasana for a second. And I'm going to feel all the poses that we did. I'm going to let the fact that prana goes back in time too. I'm going to feel it. And I'm not going to feel it with my frontal cortex. My frontal cortex can't make sense of that instruction. But my body can. I'm going to let the hum of what we did settle. But I'm going to keep my chest lifted. And in a version of alert stillness, I swear to God, I didn't script this, but the sun's finally coming out here. Maybe this is the end of class. And feel the movement of my rib cage, the openness of inhalation. I'm going to remember even when I'm exhaling. When I inhale and expand my rib cage, I'm going to remember the feeling of exhalation before I exhale. And I'm going to do it. The best way to figure out if you're overworking part of your body in a yoga pose is not just where you're fatiguing, because that's the place you're obviously that's compensating. It's also to figure out where you're stealing from, to overwork in the place that's trying to compensate. Hope you could tell we're preparing for Shavasana right here, right? So I'm even doing things like gently touching my fingertips together as I'm talking, because I'm wanting the suppleness shown to me from the body to be entering the way I'm going to surrender into my chair. Suppleness isn't there because my mind's telling me to put my fingertips together. I'm trying to learn from my body. Suppleness in my fingertips makes me remember the length in my spine, not just the compression. I'm going to lean back, surrender it all into my chair. Find where my head wants to be today. And then I'm going to stop moving. Stop moving. Trust the ceasing. Keep moving while trusting the ceasing, meaning my breath's going in and out. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. I think gratitude kind of brings a little bit of lightness into your pose, into your body. Thank it again. Your body is actually the miracle. It's what keeps you alive, not your mind. Never your mind. Nope. Start to bring yourself back, slightly deeper inhalation, slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, if you haven't already, open your eyes. Most of you already have. So, one of your many homeworks from today is try to explain what happened in this class to someone you know. Good luck with that. And maybe that someone else is actually yourself. Because I'll reflect on it some, and I'm not, again, like I couldn't believe I got to Setu Banda last week. What the hell, right? This week, it's not where I expected. So in this book, Scout Wolf and the Hula Hoop, I introduced the term every realm, right? Where when you realize that prana is going in every direction at once all the time, including forward and backward in time, right? That your mind gets overwhelmed, right? And so one of the reasons why you can do Tadasana and Shirsasana, headstand and mountain pose at the same time is that that was already happening, right? Because everything's going like, including backward and forward. It's right. It's an expanding thing. And so don't try to track that with your mind. Stay in your body, right? Because all that's happening and your body is part of it, right? Somehow, like as I get older, my skin kind of doesn't do what it used to do when I was younger. That's it's the expansion, my skin not being able to hold it all in anymore, right? Keep it taut. What a weird thing that we're all caught up with taut skin. Oh, it has to be taut. I have to resist the universe. In fact, I'll take a knife and get it all cut out. I'll do some shit to try to not be what it is. I don't even care if people do that. It's like, okay, well, damn, I get it. All right, everybody, we can talk about all sorts of weird shit. Namaste, the spirit in me bows the spirit in you.